What's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of 3.5. Thank you. Every time I say thank you for tuning in, I really appreciate it, seriously. But welcome to 3.5, where I'm still working on, some type of slogan or catchphrase or tagline. How's this one? Welcome to 3.5, where the aim is the authentic search for truth and understanding to transform collective consciousness towards positive change. I think I like that. I'm gonna work on it. Let's get this education. Speaking of which, this episode will be, I guess, kind of a part 2 for a previous episode about the importance of education prior to action. And I can't emphasize that enough. We all know that something's wrong in society, in the world. We understand the misery that the masses face. We understand climate change. At the very least, we understand that there are droughts, that there's famine, that there's war, that there's poverty, that there's racism, sexism, all of these things, even down to the fact that there's a TGI Fridays restaurant, a restaurant called Thank God It's Friday. I mean, do we think about the implications of that we all can relate to the idea of not liking 9-to-5 job life, that we want to get out of the rat race. There's so much going on on this planet. People are hungry to understand what's going on and how do we change. But not enough of us are studying what's necessary to figure that out. I notice a lot of people have various opinions about what should and shouldn't happen, about the way society should and shouldn't be, without studying anything, without reading history, giving opinions, as well as promoting actions and fulfilling actions before there's political education, before there's a understanding of one's material reality and spiritual reality. That's dangerous, to act before we understand. I just want to take this episode and share some quotes from different books and different political leaders who give their reasons, their feelings about education in a revolution. First book is Empire of Illusion, The End of Literacy and the Triumph of Spectacle by Hedges. It is about exactly what it sounds like, basically the cult of personality, the cult of the celebrity. This was written in 2009, by the way. This quote is, Hedges talks about something that Neil Postman wrote. Neil Postman was an American author who actually wrote a book that I haven't read, but I'm very interested. It's called Amusing Ourselves to Death. But he writes, George Orwell feared, were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny failed to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Huxley added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. So that's interesting. It's not the fear of having information taken away versus the fear that information will be here, but we don't care enough to look at it. That was page 39. Going to page 44. We are a culture that has been denied or has passively given up the linguistic and intellectual tools to cope with complexity, to separate illusion from reality. We have traded the printed word for the gleaming image. Public rhetoric is designed to be comprehensible to a 10-year-old child or an adult with a 6th grade reading level. Most of us speak at this level, are entertained, and think at this level. We have transformed our culture into a vast replica of Pinocchio's Pleasure Island, where boys were lured with the promise of no school and endless fun. They were all, however, turned into donkeys, a symbol in Italian culture of ignorance and stupidity. Functional illiteracy in North America is epidemic. There are 7 million illiterate Americans. Another 27 million are unable to read well enough to complete a job application, and 30 million can't read a simple sentence. There are some 50 million who read at a 4th or 5th grade level. Nearly a third of the nation's population is illiterate or barely literate, a figure that is growing by more than 2 million a year. A third of high school graduates never read another book for the rest of their lives, and neither do 42% of college graduates. In 2007, 80% of families in the United States did not buy or read a book. And it's not much better beyond our borders. Canada has an illiterate and semi-illiterate population estimated at 42% of the whole, a proportion that mirrors that of the United States. Television, a medium built around the skillful manipulation of images, ones that can overpower reality, is our primary form of mass communication. A television is turned on for 6 hours and 47 minutes a day in the average household. The average American daily watches more than 4 hours of television. That amounts to 28 hours a week, or 2 months of uninterrupted television watching a year. That same person will have spent 9 years in front of a television by the time he or she is 65. Television speaks in a language of familiar, comforting cliches and exciting images. Its format, from reality shows to sitcoms, is predictable. It provides a mass virtual experience that colors the way many people speak and interact with one another. It creates a false sense of intimacy with our elite. Celebrity actors, news people, politicians, business tycoons, and sports stars. And everything and everyone that television transmits is validated and enhanced by the medium. If a person is not seen on television, on some level, he or she is not important. Television confers authority and power. It is the final arbitrator for what matters in life. Hour after hour, day after day, week after week, we are bombarded with the cant and spectacle pumped out over the airwaves or over computer screens by highly paid pundits, corporate advertisers, talk show hosts, and gossip-fueled entertainment networks. And a culture dominated by images and slogans seduces those who are functionally literate but who make the choice not to read. The culture of illusion thrives by robbing us of the intellectual and linguistic tools to separate illusion from truth. It reduces us to the level and dependency of children. It impoverishes language. And there's one more that I want to read from this book. This endless, mindless diversion is a necessity in a society that prizes entertainment above substance. Intellectual or philosophical ideas require too much effort and work to absorb. Classical theater, newspapers, and books are pushed to the margins of cultural life, remnants of a bygone literate age. They are dismissed as inaccessible and elitist unless they provide, as Goody did, effortless entertainment. The popularization of culture often ends in its total degradation. Empire of Illusion. Definitely check that out. I'm gonna move on to Thomas Sankara. I'll give you a little bit of information about Thomas Sankara. He was a revolutionary in West Africa. He became the president of what he named Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso means land of upright people or land of incorruptible people. He was assassinated in a coup that was supported, and when someone says supported, it means, they had assistance to some extent, a lot of extent. The coup that assassinated him was supported by Western nations, especially the US. And Thomas Sankara was a revolutionary, important African leader. If you are a Black person, you need to know who Thomas Sankara is. I had no idea who Thomas Sankara was until I was on my independent study journey, and I didn't learn about him until I think this year or last year, and I was furious.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
I'm always furious. I'm always furious when I learn what I should have known so late in my life, and that is most of what I know that I deem important today. Most of what I feel that I know that's important, I did not know until after I was 25 years old. I am 32 years old, and I'm pissed whenever I think about it. Sorry, I went on a tangent. But anyway, Thomas Sankara, leader of Burkina Faso. I'll read a quote from him. He also emphasized the importance of education. This is what he said. A soldier without any ideology is a potential criminal. When you are bearing arms that can spit fire and death, and when you can receive orders standing to attention in front of a flag without knowing who will benefit from this order or this arm, you become a potential criminal who's just waiting to spread terror around you. You are a potential criminal without education. That reminds me of the Matrix, right? Anyone who was not freed from the Matrix program is susceptible to being corrupted by Agent Smith and taken over by Agent Smith, who was really the managers of the status quo. That was Thomas Sankara. Next quote. I will direct your attention to a news site called Black Agenda Report. This article called On Rage, Reading Books, and Other Necessities for the Millennial Generation by Danny Haifong. Young people in the U.S. are increasingly open to socialism and radical ideas, but less likely to study the science of revolutionary change. Young leftists seeking to avoid the mistakes of the past and the obstacles of the present must read books. There are few opportunities for young people to learn history and politics from a revolutionary perspective. On college campuses, coursework tends to ascribe to neoliberal and for-profit imperatives. Professors are promoted based on the volume of research produced and the amount of money they make for institutions, rather than the content of their work. Who knows what neoliberalism is? If you don't know what neoliberalism is, please comment below. Neoliberalism is an important word to know because it's all around us and it's used often, and I know most people I talk to have no idea what that word means. In fact, a lot of people think it's a good word because it has the word liberal in it, but it's not. Neoliberalism, in a nutshell, means market fundamentalism, which means putting as much as we can in the market, putting basic needs in the market, putting everything that we interact with that we need and want should require a market. That's basically what neoliberalism is in the nutshell. Young leftists also face a crisis of consciousness. While leftist ideas are on the rise, the reality remains that those labeled millennials know little to nothing about class struggle, black liberation, and anti-imperialism, or the fruits that prior movements won from struggle. After all, many of these fruits are disappearing by way of privatization, austerity, and state repression. Furthermore, the left is without an organized vehicle of the working class and oppressed. COINTELPRO lives on in the FBI's Black Identity Extremist files. The general crisis of capitalism has developed many individual activists, but few revolutionary organizations. Black Agenda Report, folks. News, commentary, and analysis from the Black left. Please check them out. Please. This next quote is from this book, Wages of Rebellion. I do like Chris Hedges a lot. In here, he interviewed Mumia Abu Jamal, who was a member of the Black Panthers. He's a very famous political prisoner who's been in prison for like 30, 40 years or something like that. He's a journalist also, very important. And Mumia laments on the political unconsciousness that he observed in the prison. He wondered what shape the collapse of empire will take, and he despaired of the political unconsciousness among many incoming prisoners, some young enough to be his children. When I first got to the yard, he said, and I heard groups of men talking about how Sarah was going to marry Jim, or how Frank betrayed Susan, I thought, damn, these cats all know each other and their families. That's odd. But after a few minutes, I realized they were talking about soap operas. Television in prison is the great pacifier. They love Basketball Wives because it is tits and ass with women of color. They know how many cars Jay-Z has, but they don't know their own history. They don't understand how they got here. They don't know what is being done to them. I tell them they have to read, and they say, man, I don't do books. And that is just how the empire wants it. You can't fight power if you don't understand it. And you can't understand it if you don't experience it and then dissect it. How many of us can relate to that, though? We know so much about celebrities. We know so much about television shows. We know so much about fictional worlds, but we don't understand the world around us. That's Mumia Abu Jamal. Tits and ass, man. That's a distraction. I'm done, y'all. Strive for education.